Very happy to be live with Philip Jordan tonight. Start us off, Philip, with an introduction to you and your books.
So I'm Phil Jordan. Hello, thanks Caroline for having me on again. I write a series of crime thrillers set in Northern Ireland, Belfast specifically, but it sort of darts around the country a little bit. Um, there's a series of books now. I suppose we're up to two full-length novels and three, four shorter stories. They all feature Detective Inspector Veronica Taylor and her team. The case files, which are the shorter novella books, sort of concentrate on one specific crime, sort of a run of the mill, if you want, kind of crime, whereas the longer books take a wider view of policing and sort of the challenges that Northern Ireland face, sort of specifically. So yeah, that's been me. I've sort of been 3 years, maybe four, into writing. So we're getting on a bit now that I'm getting a handle on things. I just need to find more time, as we were chatting about off screen.
We were, weren't we? And tell us a little bit more about the most recent book. So it's in this part of the series, isn't it, with Veronica?
Yeah, so the latest book is The Cross Keys. Um, the Cross Keys follows on directly. It's one of the full length books. So The Cross Keys follows on almost directly a period of a month or so from the end of Code of Silence. Um, Veronica's dealing with the fallout of a sort of an organized crime ring that was cracked, but led to the revelation of collusion, without giving too much spoilers away, and brought to a head a um, a conflict with a nemesis, Gordon Beatty, who's a paramilitary turned business magnate godfather. It brought that to a head, and sort of she's now dealing with the consequences of, did justice get adequately served, or has it just opened a can of worms for her?
It's we've got some hellos before I go into my questions about it. We've got a hello from James Murphy, Laura Hamilton, Steve Munoz, who's watching us over in California,
It's, Hey,
and
Steve,
Sam
it's good
said
to
hi
see
as
you
well.
on. Yeah, Laura too, who's been influential in keeping me behind the keyboard from day one when I might well have hung up the pen. But yeah, it's good to see so many people joining us.
I think Laura likes reading books set in islands quite a lot.
Yeah, I suppose I'm one of just many people that are currently writing about Northern Ireland, and I think it's such a unique. I think sort of local crimes taking such a place for people at the minute. They like to read maybe where they're from, where they grew up. Regional stuff's really come on, and I think within the sort of context, even of just the United Kingdom, I think we're just quite a unique place with a lot of historical but challenges that are still relevant today, that make things a little bit more edgy than sort of your run of the mill, you know, not run of the mill. I don't mean to be disparaging, but it's a lot of extra elements thrown into Northern Ireland, and things that might not necessarily be there in another book that you're reading.
And also, I guess, with Northern Ireland, a lot of stuff that people might go reading and have a certain idea of about, and then maybe come across something completely new by hearing people like yours and like James's voices that are telling it because you live there. And
Yeah, maybe. I know I kind of focus on um, probably the organized crime element and the old paramilitary elements, and how policing now has changed and how society has changed, but we're still dealing with all those different players that are still in the mix, albeit they've maybe diversified into different elements of crime, or how the police are dealing with current crime, but it's maybe takes a path 25 years back and brings other elements in. Whereas there's loads of other authors James, who's watching, was part of an analogy or a compendium of books by all local authors that pick different crimes, and they don't necessarily focus on Northern Ireland as people may well focus on Northern Ireland. The same as maybe Linda Hagen and Kerry Buchanan, who write great crime fiction set in Northern Ireland. Um, but they, you're getting a sort of a picture of Northern Ireland, but not necessarily the picture that I would portray, that or bring in those elements that people are familiar with from the TV screens and the newspapers in years gone by.
Yeah. All those people that you've mentioned, there's quite a lot of authors there whose books I've read and enjoyed.
Yeah, oh, I mean, you could go on. I mean, I've probably left quite a few out. Like Sharon Dempsey again has a good set of police procedurals set in Northern Ireland with, an officer coming home, and it's not necessarily troubles based. There's probably influences in some of it, but yeah, I mean, we've a great community here at the moment, and I'm really grateful to be part of it.
Laura said that you got her out of a horrific book slump with Code of Silence.
Laura got me over a really bad review by giving me some very kind words. So I guess we're even Stevens there. But yeah, no, I'm very grateful for Laura and the support that herself and Steve and UK Crime Book Club in general have given me over the period of years that I've been part of it.
Laura's quite Laura and Steve both are really good champions of books because the reviews they write are so good.
They're fantastic. Yeah, they're great reviewers.
I've definitely gone and bought books. There are
Yeah.
some people who you just know that you'll trust. Leslie Lloyd's another one.
Mm.
Leslie Lloyd will often message me things and I pay attention if she tells me it's a good book.
They're the reason why there's a hole in the wallet then.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Reason why I never have any money.
Yeah, that's it.
The Crossed Keys. So I read that as a preparation for our interview. I mean, I have read your books before, so you know I'm a fan.
Have.
But the Crossed Keys, you do not shy away from going to some quite dark places in that, do you?
It is a dark. I suppose it is a darker book. I guess the premise of the Cross Keys is Veronica, as we've said, is getting over the fallout from Code of Silence and what that means to her. She's kind of lost her mojo a little bit. Veronica is a sort of dedicated officer. She believes in right is right and the truth will prevail. Whereas her partner Doc McPherson might be of an older generation and a bit more cynical, whereas Veronica's kind of lost the heart of it a little bit. And what seems to be a routine case of vandalism around building sites in the city leads them into sort of something a lot darker. Obviously, Ireland and broader afield, we've had issues with sort of offences against children and the Magdalen laundries and all that sort of horrific stuff that other people have written spectacularly well about. I think when the idea of this book and bringing the sort of darker backstories and the darker elements of Northern Ireland to the fore, the children's homes and things like that. There was a place not too far, which I mentioned in the historic note at the back, from where I grew up, that had these troubles, or these kids went through horrible experiences, and no one really was ever brought to justice. And it sort of lined up with the likes of the Jeffrey Epstein stuff in recent years, and even more recently that was on the TV, the Savile documentary. And things just started to percolate a little bit, and I wanted to sort of explore that in the context of how Veronica gets over her slump, dealing with how the past and the present all seem to collide again in that story. But yeah, I suppose it is a bit more grim, but I think hopefully at least some people get their comeuppance eventually, which doesn't necessarily happen in real life.
True. I'm going to read you some of these comments on here because they're really nice. So Sam says you're a great supporter of other authors, but also of the group. You're an active and important member, and it's much appreciated.
Oh, bless you. That's
You
very
worded it
kind.
much better than I could have done, which is why I've just read it out.
No, I'm glad to be part of it. And as I say, I wouldn't be enjoying the support that I get if it wasn't for, you know, the book club being there and allowing me to do things like this or post, whether it's about my own books or yes, as you say, you get so many recommendations of other great books and um I'm glad to be a part of it, yeah.
Laura said she liked how you alluded to the darker elements rather than make them graphic. I think it was well handled.
Yeah, I didn't want to
It
make it
didn't go too
no.
far, didn't
I
cross any
think there's people that write graphic, violent, sort of that type of thing, but I suppose if you're people are anything like me, I don't generally enjoy that sort of stuff, but it would only take a little bit of sort of nudging, or as Laura says, alluded to, that my imagination would start to go, and then I would think about it for a while. So yeah, I didn't want to really. I don't think it's the sort of subject that I wanted to be elbow neck deep in. It's you can probably get the gist, get it over the line without having to really be brutal about it. And that being said, there's whilst this is kind of darker, these were the stuff that I'm talking about are people's lived experiences, and that's just even a horrendous thought to think about at times.
I think what's interesting with your writing, and not just in this book, but in others, is you kind of get to the end of the book and need some time to process the
Well, that would
story and kind of think it through, if you know what I mean, and be like, I don't know.
how
You,
I feel.
yeah, but
No, well, I think I
human,
sort of
you
suppose I
all
would like, yeah, I would like people to go away and maybe consider some of the themes or consider, or justice in the round. And I suppose, I guess I'm a bit, I suppose a lot of me is poured into Veronica, and I would be a bit like her and feel that, truth and justice will out and good will win in the end. And I think the more I write and the more I explore the world through her and Tom Shepherd and the rest of the characters in the book, the more I realize that unfortunately it's not all black and white. There's shades of grey, and not everyone gets the justice that they deserve, and not everyone that's done right ends up on the right side of that. So yeah, if that's people go away and are thinking about themes, then that's good. That means I'm hopefully doing the right thing.
you're definitely doing the right thing. Sam said she likes the pictures behind you.
Yeah, that's my tribute wall. I sort of get to the point where I've finished a book. They're never up there until they're finished and done out, and then I'll print off a book cover and frame it. And I suppose it's a bit of inspiration for me too. I mean, before any of the books, there was a couple of knockoff copy covers that had just made up sort of that psychological thing that I had done, and maybe wrapped the paperback book in a cover of the Cross Keys and left it sitting on my desk for the months that I was writing it. Just as a thing to inspire me that I'm going to get there after many, many years and many, many false starts of trying to take this road and never achieving it. It's good now to come in, and I must admit it, that you do get a sense of pride when I walk in and I see there's those 6 books there, and there's another couple of the Task Force Trident books just on the left. But yeah, it gives me a wee bit of inspiration to keep going.
I like that idea of having the mocked up cover to give you inspiration for you
Yeah, I
as
mean,
well. That's quite nice.
yeah, it was something that spurred me on. Every time I walked in, it was, I guess you could say, it was mocking me, and it's here, finish me, right? Write this book and get it done so that it is a book. But it was, yeah, it was just another psychological trick that got me to keep going. As I say, I've been probably writing for years and across lots of different genres, but just never managed until that period of furlough where I wasn't at work and I had time to dedicate um, to get over it. Yeah.
I'm always amazed by the people who had the time. sort of during like lockdown and the will to sort of do all that work at home and be so productive.
I You see, it was probably something that I just ached for. I didn't have. So work, as we were talking about before, around that time, I was doing a lot of commuting. 3, 4 hours a day. I was actively managing a lot of different projects, and by the time I got home from work, and then was dealing with just family life and other things, you maybe had an hour a day, and suddenly for me, going having an hour a day to myself between 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock at night before you get on the hamster wheel and start again. All of a sudden, I had 8 or 10 hours a day of not knowing what to do with myself, and it was great. It was just right. I know this is us now. This is what I'm doing. And yeah, I like to cook, but I wasn't doing banana bread or Joe Wicks, so that just got me. Yeah, that was what I did over lockdown. Yeah.
Yeah, some people really liked it and thrived and were really good at doing it. I was the opposite. So I commute a long time and sort of have a crazy job, but I think I need to be crazy.
Yeah, no, I can understand how some people didn't enjoy it at all, and the people I work with now detested it. But I never went back to work from lockdown. I ended up I worked from home for the next sort of couple or 3 years, and yeah, it just suited me. I thrived on it, and it was great. But then I'm sort of happy. I'm probably quite happy in my own company and stuff, so I don't need the. Whereas other people just needed to get out of the house and away to work, and that maybe change of scenery every day. Whereas I was grand. I came to work, had a dog behind me in a bed and one at my feet, and they got me out of the chair and away for a walk every now and again. And yeah, it worked for me. And I'm grateful for it. Admittedly, it was a bad time, but I'm grateful I got that opportunity to find time.
We've got some questions from Mike Hemming. Will said that he does similar to you. He's got posters of his plays on the wall and it gives him the boost to keep going.
Yeah, no, I would say whatever works. I Convince yourself, write a fake review, do whatever. But yeah, I it works for me. I'm glad to hear
Um,
it's not. It works for Will too.
yeah. Well, Will's got some cracking books.
He does, yeah. I've read a few of them, and they're great.
Mike wants to know, he's got two questions for you. It's Mike Hemming. He says, do you decide on short or novel length first or the storyline?
I suppose the answer to that one is maybe not clear cut. In my head, when I was coming up with this sort of road to travel, I reckoned I could do a full length novel a year over the course of 12 months. So between the writing and the publishing and the doing all the stuff that independents have to do, that I could get a good decent novel a year out. But then you see people maybe like JD Kirk or whoever, and they're putting a novel out every, you know, 2 months, 90 days max. And, there's people there that are insanely productive. And I think that's where, if you want to make a career out of this, you need to be. You need to have books and books and books. So my idea was I would get a novel out, and in the period between that novel coming out and me starting to write the next one or the next one coming out, I would do a short story. So that's why there has ended up being the full length novels, which sort of travel a path, and then these independent short stories, which link into the Veronica Taylor universe, if you want. So they are totally independent, not necessarily tied to the full length books, but all the same characters are in them. So, in terms of the storylines for the Code of Silence, the Cross Keys, and the next book, No Going Back, I had that arc in my head of where it needed to travel. So that was just I've known these have to be split up into a few longer novels. The short stories just come as ideas, things that I want to explore. The Devil's Elbow, I wanted to do something themed around Halloween and bring a bit of sort of supernatural and where it plays with your head. Is something actually sinister happening, or is it just bad people? Um, Behind Closed Doors is a bit of a twist on domestic violence, and then Into Thin Air is really just about business and what the corruption of power. People want wealth, or where that sort of thing lies. So those sort of, again, what you were talking about, the themes maybe that you think about at the end, I kind of get an idea of that, and then the story sort of somehow tags onto it, and we'll get there.
He also wants to know, Mike, which of the two genres, Belfast crime or thriller, is your favourite for writing?
Oh, I don't have a favorite. I love them both.
It's like picking a favourite child movie.
Yeah, I think this was another probably conscious decision, that I'm a huge fan of Ian Rankin and those sorts of writers, and that crime, the Rebus sort of character driven crime book. But I'm also a huge fan of Vince Flynn or Tom Clancy and Kyle Mills, that type of big thriller book. Um, and I think I wanted to greedy, in a greedy way, do both. And it kind of panned out that I had Tom Shepard, who is an ex-soldier in Code of Silence, who's returned to Belfast. So it gave me the opportunity to write those books and then go back and explore his military sort of service, in those couple of short stories of his that I've done so far. And really have two complete separate things, so I could finish writing a crime thriller and move into something totally different, totally fresh, and not find myself maybe bored of writing the same thing all the time. So that was the idea behind it. But no, I enjoy both, and I haven't written a Task Force Trident book in a while. The next book heavily features Tom Shepard, but it's still a contemporary book off the back of the Cross Keys. But I've a few ideas. I'm just trying to. I think the good thing that Kyle Mills or Vince Flynn and Clancy done was they looked at the world at large and what big sort of world events were happening and the conflicts that were going on. And they wrote good books based around stuff that was going to happen in 18 months. And I have a few ideas about that for Tom in his military thriller series. So we'll just see how that goes.
Cool. Mike says he likes both as well.
That's good. Yeah, Mike's great. He's been very supportive too. I'm really appreciative of it.
And Steve wants to know the character Macpherson. How did you ever come up with him? Do you know anyone like him?
I don't know. I'm sort of very lucky that Macpherson appeared. I probably do know people similar to him. I've probably had experiences. I was worked in security for a long time in my sort of younger days, growing up as apprenticeships and things. And there's been a few characters in the RUC or the military or whoever that have come across big, larger than life Macpherson types. He's not based on any one specific person, but yeah, I guess he's just that foil character that Taylor's the straight shooter, and he's very much the old hand. And I think he brings us at times a bit of levity to things, but on the other hand, he sort of keeps her on her toes.
Steve says he thinks combining the two genres as you have with Code of Silence and Cross Keys is excellent.
No, well, again, I had these two big characters in Taylor and Tom Shepard, and they're both very different stories, but they just kind of they just came together, and it seems to have worked. And I'm really grateful that people are enjoying it. And yeah, that's incredible. Steve had written a fab review for both those books, and I'm glad that he's. It gives me that sort of encouragement that I had the initial idea that we'll bring this guy back to Belfast seeking, retribution, for want of a better term, on what happened to him, um, and how that sort of feeds into how Veronica Taylor's Straight as an Arrow deals with this rogue element of someone seeking the same thing as her, but in a very different way.
I think it's probably also good if you're merging genres like that for people like me who will dip into them, because I don't read a lot of thrillers, but do quite enjoy them sort of being merged. It's like a sort of gently easing people into.
Yeah, you might sort of enjoy the character and decide you'll give this other bit a go. Yeah, I mean they're not too sort of boom boom bang bang. I suppose to the degree they are, because one's set in Syria and one's more of a sort of crisscross across Europe. But, and it's, for want of a better description, like again a Vince Flynn or an Ian Fleming kind of style. But yeah, but I think because you've got that parallel from the crime series, you've got this character that you sort of know, and it maybe gives you a different bit of nuance to him and gets you into a slightly different genre.
Steve wants to know if you're going to be going more into the background of the two characters.
Yeah, I would. I think the next book will probably dig a bit more into Tom Shepherd. Where the Cross Keys ends, I guess Taylor's going to have to confront where she sits, where her cards are going to play going forward, and what type of person and police officer she's going to be. I think Taylor has quite a deep backstory to go into anyway. Her father was murdered, and his probationary partner through the early days was McPherson. So although McPherson's her partner, he's sort of her surrogate father. So there's a lot of elements there. I have an idea of a book that maybe crosses timelines. So whether it's a case that has started before her father's death with McPherson, that her and McPherson finish off 30 years down the line, 25 years down the line. That's percolating in the background, but I haven't got an idea where it's going, but it's definitely something that if I would like to do. There's a series of book, Inspector Pacala. The name of the author escapes me, but he was a Finnish detective. He worked for Stalin. It was a Second World War crime based type thing, but it traversed timelines really well. When Inspector Bacala worked for the Tsar before he was executed, and now their sort of jump between an investigation he was doing then and how it now is in the 30s working for Stalin. So I've seen it done. Whether I have the ability to pull it off is another matter. But yeah, I'll give it a go. But don't hold your breath, people.
We're going to say yes. You have the ability to pull it off. My coming can't wait.
Good. I'm glad. It's
So
not
you
a.
said. Sorry, go on.
No, you're okay. No, go ahead.
You said you had the arc from the. So we're like 2 in with Cross Keys. You had the arc in your head. Do you see yourself carrying Veronica on beyond that arc, or do you think they'll end
Yeah,
with that arc?
I think and again, don't take this as a spoiler, but I think at the end of that arc, in my head, it sets these two characters off on very different paths. So the books will then perhaps flip flop between. So you'll have a Veronica Taylor book, which will be a pure crime based crime thriller, of a police procedural book, whereas you'll have Tom Shepherd who's off somewhere else doing his own thing. Whether those two come back together, whether wherever Tom Shepherd is, Interpol intervenes and needs Taylor to come to France or Italy or wherever as a secondment, that might happen. But at the end of this arc, at the end of No Going Back, they'll be taking different paths. Not to say they won't ever cross paths again, but you'll have that sort of, I guess, as I say, with Taylor, a police procedural that will explore all those things, her past, those characters that we've got in those books. What's going to happen with Gordon Beatty? What is her relationship going to be with Gordon Beatty? What's his relationship going to be with the rest of the criminal fraternity? And Shepard will be doing his own thing in I want to almost say like a Lee Child Reacher, or a sort of MacGyver type thing, where he'd be off getting into trouble, trying to stay out of it, but it not quite working out for him. And again, he has a past of his own, so there's plenty of people that he has crossed, or has or looking revenge on him. So his past could come back to haunt him too.
There's quite a few people looking forward to.
Yeah, I just as I say, I've a lot there. I've plenty of ideas. I just need to restructure my schedule and get the words in regularly enough. But that's of this last few weeks, I seem to be getting settled into things again.
It can take a time, can't it? Especially if you made a big leap, like going
Yeah,
from working from home to commuting and stuff, getting to work out.
yeah. It's
Work
just
out
that
schedule.
it's that few hours of dead day where you could be being productive, but you're not. Again, dictation is something I'm looking at, trying to do a bit of dictating to an app on the car, and then use that as a template, or a very rough draft to give me a head start of an evening whenever I come back. So there's tools there. I just have to work out what works best for me.
I try to use my commute to catch up with my reading.
Audiobooks, I hope. Oh no, your bus. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm a bus person,
yeah,
so
that's much
we're all
more
good.
sensible then.
No one's
Yeah,
gonna be
no, that would.
jealous if I read a book.
Unfortunately, no. I'm audiobooks. I did spend a lot of time on audiobooks when I was commuting before, and I do enjoy audiobooks. So.
Donna said good evening as well. She's watching.
How you
Do
doing?
you
Yeah.
do you have? I'm sure we've talked about this before, but do you have any like complete kind of standalones planned? So would you come up with like just a one-off story?
Um, I don't have any planned. There's one character in the book, both Code of Silence and the Cross Keys, who's totally incidental. It's a guy called Eddie Fox, and he goes by the sort of the nickname Wurzel. He's almost like he was in the gangs. He was a bit of a character, and he has given Taylor and McPherson tidbits of information, whether he's a tout, or he's the guy that they go to if they need to know the gen on certain people. Um, he's a character that I haven't. He lurks about in my head, and I think, yeah, there could be something for him again within the sort of that universe, but as a standalone for him. But in terms of a totally third party random character book, maybe not related to Belfast or anything. No, I think I've too many ideas for these at the minute to segue off into a random one off.
Fair enough. I'm also curious because you like to blend genres quite seamlessly. If you'd be tempted to sort of merge any other genres.
Um, Cowboys and aliens type thing.
Yeah, well, maybe not as dramatic as Cowboys and Aliens, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't know. Yeah, maybe. I was a fan. I'm I was a fan growing up of the sort of the Alien movies, and there was a recent Predator one that done Predator, but back in Native American days, and that sort of historic but futuristic clash, sci-fi slash historical thing was I enjoyed that. Whether it would be something I would do, I don't know. Maybe a science fiction police in space or something. I don't know, that type of thing. Total Recall type idea, where maybe it's a. And I do like that sort of post-apocalyptic stuff at times. The likes of The Last of Us and things like that. So I don't know. Maybe I would give a go at something, but as I say, I have too many ideas for these, and until I either hit a wall and need an out to take my mind off things, then it would be a while before I'd go for anything like that.
Is there any authors you'd like to collaborate with?
Oof. Um, I don't know, to be honest. I don't even know how. I'm getting used to my own thing without having to think about working with other people. Would maybe like to write a script with Michael Mann or David Fincher or something? Maybe I would go. That might be a way in. But yeah, in terms of collaboration, not something I've thought about. But yeah, there's a lot of people I admire, and um, yeah, never say never. But you do see these books that have been. I just don't know how they work. I don't know how you write a story together. Write a chapter and send it on, and he writes the next chapter or she. I just find it. I couldn't get my head around that.
I don't know. The only people I know who I've heard recently say it are the Bridge Docs. They write together, and essentially Bob just writes the like the police case like he would as a detective, and then Carol goes in and
Yeah,
adds all
the pros.
like the emotion and
Ah, right. Okay.
the feelings and the things like that.
Yeah. Well, they're good. They're good books too. So, although obviously being married, they've quite a good. They would have a close connection there, and they're in the same place. Whether that helps, I'm sure it helps immensely. But as I say, in terms of, I don't know. I don't know how it would. To
Yeah,
be
I
honest.
know. I don't know how it would work either. It's
Even these things that you see where they obviously have writers' room and you're writing a TV series or whatever, and you're all in together and you write, two people write 3 episodes of the season and three other people write three single episodes. I guess there's a way to do it. It's just, I don't know what it is.
Laura's suggesting you could do something more supernatural after Devil's Elbow.
I had, I really have liked to have done a Christmas themed one. Um, we've had a few big things happen in Northern Ireland around Christmas. One being the Northern Bank robbery, which was one of the biggest robberies in Europe. Um, but I think McPherson at Christmas lends himself to all sorts of comedic efforts. He's if he's not a sort of Scrooge character, and there's not that sort of theme to be had, it's a missing a trick. So I just, again, with things that have happened, um, that hasn't happened this year, but yeah, I would like to do something along those lines. And yes, I do have another idea for another sort of supernatural one, but not like a Clive Barker or a Stephen King type supernatural.
Sounds good though. That'll make Laura happy to hear.
Yeah, well, good.
I'm trying to. She said Mac is Santa at a community centre.
Do you know, he's in a shopping centre in my head, and one of the other DCs is an elf, and it's not going well. So that's where this starts. That's where that sort of short story begins. And it's a stakeout of a jewelry store after there's been a spate of thefts. And yeah, for some reason, have him as Santa, a not very pleasant one, and Aaron Riley as his elf, and Taylor trying to keep the peace. But that's where that story started anyway. Hasn't gone too far, but it'll get there.
So you're telling me before we went live that you're toying with trying to script write?
Yeah, so I had been speaking with James Murphy, another author, at an event he had invited me to attend during the summer, and we'd spoken previously at a Crime Writers Association event that he had been approached. And I think one of the things that struck me on, we were talking about one of a short story that he did that ended at a Snow Patrol concert, a local Snow Patrol concert in Ward Park. And he'd been talking to a director or whatever, and this had sort of said, look, budget issues, we need to cut this huge concert. So I had sort of thought, I have a book, Behind Closed Doors, which takes place 50% in an interview room with the suspect and Taylor head to head. And the rest of the book is really McPherson and Aaron Riley interviewing people in a small village. So it's one of the first books. It is the first book that I ever put out. So it's quite close to me. It was savaged for one reason or another, but thankfully formatting and other things, thanks to Laura's input, was changed, and now it gets really good feedback. So I had I thought I would just give it a go, changing that story to screenplay. So I'd screenwriting software. A lot of my first drafts are written in that sort of screenplay format of just character name, dialogue, bit of action, and then I build that up. So I had the idea to do it, and I've started that, and I'm probably 50 or 60% through it. So again, it's more of an exercise in keeping me writing when I'm not writing the novel. So yeah, it's enjoyable. Hopefully, we'll BBC do an open call, so I'll maybe put it in and get some feedback on it and see whether it's worth an avenue pursuing for something else. But I think, yeah, everybody, well, I know for me, it would be nice if the books got picked up. I mean, Northern Ireland's becoming synonymous with TV shows, with Blue Lights and The Fall and Line of Duty being filmed here, and even Hope Street at the minute, which is a little bit more sort of easy watching rather than the stuff that I write about. But it would be nice to think that people who enjoy that sort of TV show may well enjoy the books, and if the books can move into another medium, then that would be brilliant.
So I'm going to borrow Sam's question that she likes to ask, which is, if they were made, what character would you like to play?
Oh, I don't know. My stepdaughter always wants. She's told me I want to be in it, and I've told her you can be a PC starting at a tape. But for me, I don't know. I wouldn't, obviously. Maybe just that sort of cameo thing that Lee Child does in sort of the Reacher films or the Reacher series, where maybe spill McPherson's pint on him or something like that. The random guy, not. But that would be quite cool, to be fair.
Will said, have you had to change much for the screenplay? He's just adapted his stage play into a novel. With Mr. Nice and found it a challenge to restyle it more to prose style.
I think I've been blessed because I've done it the other way around. So really, I'm taking out a lot. I've got the dialogue to a degree, so I'm just chopping thousands of words of prose out of it. So maybe a couple of paragraphs of description has to be condensed into quick fire action sort of scene. But I think the novel to the screenplay for me would probably be easier than going from screenplay to novel, albeit, as I say, my first drafts are quite screenplay like, that it's just dialogue and a bullet of action to build on. But yeah, I think whatever works, but it works for me the other way around. So write the novel first.
I think I'm missing something here with Laura's comment. She says the weather on Hope Street confuses her. She can only think it's proof of global warming.
So Port Divine, which is Donegal, is about 6 miles down the road from us. And Northern Ireland doesn't have great weather. I mean, it's rained and it's had storms, and Hope Street, it seems, is caught in this bubble of Dubai like sunshine every time you. I don't think I've seen an episode where it's been raining. It's blue skies, and it's either very good post production, or they've just been very lucky when they've been filming. But yeah, it's not the sort on Hope Street and Portdivine, the fictional Portdivine, generally doesn't have weather like they do in real life.
Okay, nice. I don't have a TV license. I don't watch much TV.
It's quite a gentle sort of loosely based police procedural thing. So yeah, it's okay. It's like Hollyoaks and something like that, but police based in a little village.
Steve's saying, he says it's safe to say you see things in a filmic way. You can see that in your books.
Yeah, I think I do. I think I've always been a real fan of film and TV, and I think, yeah, I do have it does come to me very visually. You know, I see the scene, and then I guess that helps because I sort of can move around it like a cameraman or a director, and see what works and what doesn't, or what angle and that sort of thing, if it makes any sense from a book point of view. But yeah, I've grown up loving TV and cinema, and I think that has probably helped influence my writing in a big way too.
It might help when you're writing action and stuff, I think, especially if you can picture it.
Yeah, I think breaking down the action scenes can be quite, and there's maybe one at the end of Code of Silence in particular with Shepard and another one of the criminal gangs physically fighting, and I think that breaking that scene by scene, shot by shot of, it's hard to do a 4-page fist fight without having a good sort of idea of how it plays out and how it ends. So yeah, it worked. It seemed to have worked in the book. I'm glad nobody's pulled me on it. So yeah, I'm glad that's the way my mind works, I guess.
Well, it's good. Do you ever sort of catch yourself sort of playing out a fight almost like as a shadow boxer?
I would probably have a scrap bit of I would doodle on a page and see, try and imagine the speed, imagine these people moving around this space, and if he's done this here, where does it leave him here? And almost chess pieces in doodle form around a square on a page to try and work out what makes sense and where they are in relation to the other elements in the room and the other people. So not so much me dodging myself, but yeah, I would definitely try and choreograph it on a page, like suppose in a cinematic type of storyboard sketchy way, for want of a better description.
Good idea. Victoria Dow did it once with like a house, I think, like a Lego house, and moved characters around. So
Oh yeah.
I think that's quite a good way of
Yeah, it is.
keeping track.
I think that would be the likes of one of those sort of locked room murder mysteries. We're all caught in the house in a storm to try and work out remember who's where when what happens is a great way. That would lend itself brilliantly. Or a Cluedo board, one of those type.
Yeah.
Good idea.
I'm going to ask you my favorite question now for this year. What have you read? What have you read recently and really enjoyed? What have been your books of the year? We're nearly at the end of the year, so I can ask that.
We're nearly at the end of the year, and I haven't read that much. Guess because I was sort of trying to get the Cross Keys finished, and I don't really read while I'm writing. But there was a Tony Forder's last Chase book. I can't remember the name of it. It was really good.
Steve is a big Tony Forder fan.
Yeah, I don't know whether he'd be doing any more of them, but his last, I'm looking actually up, was probably a lot of people in the group have books on the phone, so I'm trying to look and see what I have on the Predators by Tony Forder. I read it; it was great. Um, Avenue Cars by Chris Speck was probably earlier this year, which I enjoyed. It was good. You and I both had loved his other book about the fishing trawler. Um, so they're definitely two in terms of other books. Kyle Mills, I'd read one of his. I don't know whether that was this year though. Oh, it was. That was probably the last book that I actually did finish reading. Was The Enemy at the Gates by Kyle Mills, which is another big sort of Tom Clancy type thriller. It was set in Africa, and it was to do with viruses and the U.S. president and billionaires and things like that. So it was sort of my type of book. But and that was they were a couple of standout ones. But I have a list the length of myself to read. You know, of loads of books. Some have got on great deals too. There, like Fearless, and there's loads of books there that I have. I just need to find time to sit and read them. So maybe when Christmas comes and I get a bit of a break, I'll have some time to just purge the Kindle of all my to be reads.
I don't think that's a task that'll ever get done for anyone.
No, that is one of those ones that you're never getting to the bottom of it. I think it's as fast as you take one off, you put two on, isn't it? It's that like an escalator.
Yeah, I'm like that with books. I think I'm clearing my TBR and then I come home with like more.
I think we're all like that as readers. I think you just can't help yourself. It's just, um, yeah, you're never going to. We'll never get through them all. And I guess the good thing is there's so many great ones out there. You're never going to, get. You're always going to find something.
But then that's the good thing is as well that there's so much variety out there. So you were saying we've got your books that are you was we started off talking, didn't we, about the local things. Your books have got that really distinct flavour of where you are.
Oh,
You mentioned Avenue Cars, that's like a really uniquely kind of book that is set in Hull, isn't it? Could only really
yeah.
be set there. It feels like
No, definitely, and I think we're just so lucky that we do, and it's the book club sort of highlights it with such a depth and breadth of authors out there writing great stuff that we're just very in a really lucky position where we have so many great people writing at the minute.
Will's got a question for you. He says, do you read back over your previous books to keep characters and events fresh when you're starting a new one? He's having to reread his first two Maxi books as he writes the next because he went off piste with a horror book.
I'm don't shoot the geek, but have a big spreadsheet of each of the books. So each of the books has all these plot points and very much like a beat sheet. So I can kind of get the depth of the story or the grasp of things by reviewing these sheets, which are fairly extensive. Um, but I do have to dip into the books now and again to remember where we last left this character or what specifically happened at this event. So I'll dip in and out of them, but I don't necessarily feel that I need to reread them. I haven't totally reread them, but they would be there as references. And definitely Code of Silence was dipped into whilst in the writing of the Cross Keys. So yeah, it's definitely something I would do. But I'm lucky to have these sort of big spreadsheet beat sheets that tell me act 1, 2, and 3 and all the different bits in between. So that helps.
We
Which that maybe answers am I a plotter or a pantster question if anybody had it.
yeah, does both, doesn't it? We also like a nerd in this group, so don't worry about
Yeah,
being
well,
geeky.
that's good. Another acceptance then.
Oh god, yeah. I always say that I'm married to literally a giant nerd. But oh, Will says he's taking notes this time.
Well, yeah, that's that's the way. A spreadsheet works for me, or yeah, just a you can imagine that it does help. It's just even the pertinent points, big events that you need to refer back to, or things like characters that you might want to pick up again.
I think you've got to do it in a way that works for you, and that sounds.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that was for years, as I say, I tried to write for years and I wrote from quite literally as the seat of my pants. So I had an idea and I started to write and I maybe got 10,000 words in, maybe got 50,000 words in and it didn't go anywhere. It just rode to a dead end. Um, and then I discovered a screenwriting book by a guy called Daniel Calvisi, Story Maps. And it broke down a lot of big well-known films into 3 acts and a lot of different beats. And then I took that and started to use it in conjunction with every book that I was reading. And I realized that these books, the likes of the Rebus books or maybe Mark Dawson's thriller books, any type of book hits these general beats. It's broken into acts. It hits different plot points at different times of the book. And when I kind of understood that and then framed my idea onto when I did get to a dead end, it had a signpost of where to go next. Um, and it doesn't take that long to flesh out the broad structure, and then you can kind of build it as you're writing. And that's definitely what worked for me. I don't think I would ever have got certainly the Cross Keys finished or got to this point where I have the a lot of books, a reasonable amount of books in such a short space of time, if it didn't stumble on that screenplay book or the beat sheet book. Yeah, there's other ones there like Save the Cat and things like that, and they're definitely they help me. I know people like to, and it doesn't take any surprise out of it for me because we could still get to a point in the story and Macpherson goes and does something rash or something happens between Shepard and someone and it takes me on a different angle and that just lets me slightly rearrange this storyboard. But yeah, that's what works for me. And as you say, it's whatever works for you. If you can write it from the seat of your pants or you need something like that, don't be afraid to mix them up.
I guess as well, if you're writing a series like you are, that's quite complex and has an arc over a number of books, that is probably going to be something that you are going to need more than maybe it
Yeah,
would be in like a standalone.
I think so. Yeah, I think a standalone obviously is what it is. You've a beginning, a middle, and an end, and that's it. And whether maybe, and I know Kyle Mills wrote a great story called Fade years ago. It was about a Navy SEAL, um, uh, sort of a Middle Eastern Navy SEAL working. He was injured, and it was a sort of conspiracy type theory. But it was a one-off book, never to be touched again. And now that he's finished his Vince Flynn tenure, I think he's going to return to that standalone and maybe continue it. So for him, that obviously a standalone is a standalone. You're finished. Whereas me, as you say, those spreadsheets and referring to the books and things like that definitely continue that arc and help you.
And then we're so near the end of our time.
It's flown in.
Remind everyone if they're watching and aren't already a fan like Mike and or I presume already own all the books. Remind everyone what they're going to go away and buy.
So I'm Philip Jordan. The books are the Belfast Crime series. So there's Code of Silence, which is the first book, main book in the series, the sort of novel-sized book, which is followed a few months later by The Cross Keys. Or if you want to whet your appetite, the Crime Case Files. There's a compendium of the 3 Crime Case File books. The Supernatural one, which is The Devil's Elbow, Behind Closed Doors, and Into Thin Air. You can get them on Amazon. Or Sam has quite generously put my website address up. So click on that and you'll find them all there. And I have a newsletter that goes out not very routinely, so maybe once a month or every 6 weeks. I generally do a draw of anybody that's on that reader list, so you'll get an email asking you which book would you like to download, and I'll send you a link to download it for free. So it's just a way to keep in touch by the books and hopefully generate a bit of interest for people.
And then all that's left to say from me is thanks for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much for having me again. It's been great as always. And again, for the continued support. It's very much appreciated from yourselves at the book club and from everybody that's contributed. It's great. It's
Great.
inspiring for me to keep me getting back to this desk to do a bit more.
You've got a lot of people who've really enjoyed listening to you.
Good.
So
Thank you. I'm glad to see so many familiar faces and people that, as I say, genuinely have kept me at this desk with their feedback. It's very, very much appreciated.
it's good to know that they're helping.
Definitely. No, it's a lonely old job sitting in front of a blank screen, and no, I couldn't do it without the support. So thank you.
And thanks for joining us again.
All right. Thanks, Caroline. Thanks, everybody.